Hello, 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 welcome back to Hunter Tune. Today, La Pikachu EK hatch is here for a dyno tune and to get the boost by gear installed. So this car got dropped off the other day and starting to work on it tonight and beating the heat a little bit. Tomorrow's supposed to be like 93 degrees and super frickin' humid. So trying to do this stuff out here a little bit later at night when the temperature's not as bad. But the mosquitoes, man, oh, they're terrible out here. Anyways, car got dropped off and he wanted me to plumb the boost by gear, so I went and checked out the wastegate, and unfortunately he had the wastegate plumbed wrong. So on these tile wastegates, I think that's what this is, they have two ports on the top, and he had both of them running, or both vacuum lines coming off the wastegate were from the top port. There was no port coming from the bottom, so it would have boosted to the moon, and good thing I caught that. So I plumbed the top of the wastegate to the MAC valve, the bottom of the wastegate to the MAC valve, and then there was also no boost source going to the wastegate. So going to the bottom of the wastegate, we need to give it a boost source or a vacuum source or whatever. So I actually tied into the intercooler pipe down here, put some air brake line on here with a fitting. I just tapped the intercooler pipe. That's usually what I do on these things. It works really good. Instead of drilling into the turbo, this works just as good. So I tapped that, put a fitting in, then I ran the line right here in front of the intercooler. It all runs along here and then sneaks through under the headlight to the MAC valve that I put in. So got the MAC valve all plumbed in, and also there was a couple springs in the wastegate. We took it out and we put one, probably like an 8-pound spring in the wastegate, so it'll make 8 pounds at its lowest boost. That's not how it works. You got to make sure. This guy thought you want to spring the gate as high as you can so you can make that much boost, but that's not the case, especially with a 4-port solenoid. You want to run as little of a wastegate spring as you have, and that's what this thing had. The smallest one is what I put in, which should be around 8 pounds of boost. And then we use the boost controller to push air into the top of the wastegate to keep it shut in order to keep the turbo spinning. So got that all plumbed in. I ran the power wire right to the starter. So the wiring off the MAC valve here, I just ran one to the starter probe. It just needs 12 volts. It can be constant or switched. So ran one to the starter block, and then I ran the other one to A11. That's this green wire right here. I just plumbed that in. It's all plumbed into A11. I tested it with the Hondata. This car was on a chipped ECU previously, and he wants to tune it now on S300. So the S300 is installed. I got a base map in it. Everything is running. And I tested the output to make sure that the solenoid was buzzing, and it is. So boost by gear stuff completed, but now we have to get this thing ready to tune. So it does have adjustable cam gears on it, and one of them, I don't know if you guys can see that, one of them is advanced and one is at 0. So from this guy's understanding, this head is completely stock other than valve springs and retainers. The cams themselves are stock. So we're going to put both of these back at 0. We're going to put the cams at 0, then we're going to set our ignition timing with the light, and I'm going to set my fuel pressure. So this thing has this hose just clamped on to the regulator port right here, which I don't really like, especially with the base pressure this thing's running. The base pressure is like 60 psi. So we're going to lower that down to like 40 or 35 because this thing has a huge set of injectors. It's got Bosch 2200s. So with the Bosch 2200s, we definitely don't need to run that high of a base pressure. We can run lower base pressure and get away with it. So if we have like a 35 or 40 psi base, we know this thing is safe at 60 with these clamps on it. So I'm just taking mental notes here like, okay, base pressure is okay at 60. So when we run 20 pounds of boost or whatever, it'll go back up to that 60. And the fuel, hopefully they'll be all right. I would at least want to put 2 clamps on this thing, but it seems fine. For now, it's just some notes I'm going to give the guy when he picks it up. So yeah, let's dive right in. Bosch 2200s, it has a forged bottom end with like eagles and Y-scos. It's a GSR. I think it's a GSR or LSV Tech. I can't even tell because the block is painted. The stamp is painted on, so I can't even tell what bottom end it is. I'm pretty sure it's a GSR. Edelbrock Victor X intake manifold, 70 mil skunk throttle, tile blow-off valve, 2.5 inch piping it looks like for the intercooler. It's just got an eBay intercooler here. It's got a Precision 6262 with the small hot side. This is only a 63 AR hot side on the turbine. So it should spool up pretty quick, hopefully, as long as all the couplers and piping and everything is doing well. This thing should be a little ripper. I'm gonna just double check a lot of this stuff and make sure it's all good to go. I just checked the oil, it's full, coolant is low. That's one thing I was gonna mention, is they have a cap on the overflow here. That's not gonna work. I gotta put a hose on this and at least run like a water bottle or a Gatorade bottle or something off of this, because if this is plugged, it's just going to put more pressure. Say the head gasket is bad, that's just going to put more pressure in these hoses, and you'll end up just bursting a radiator hose or bursting a heater core line or something like that, instead of being able to relieve the pressure out of the cap like it's supposed to. So I don't know exactly what cap this is, but hopefully it should hold up. We're gonna fill this thing up, get a Gatorade bottle or overflow in it, and then I'm gonna set my base pressure. Hopefully the base pressure will go low enough. Sometimes on these setups, if the fuel pump is really big, like this is a Walbro 525 in here, you can't really get the base pressure too low, so that kind of sucks. But we'll see what we can do. I'm also gonna set this cam gear at 0, do some of that stuff, and then we'll pick up with you guys after that. This car is completely gutted. It just has a seat and a steering wheel pretty much, and obviously a gauge cluster and whatnot, but it is a race car. There's nothing back here. So hopefully this thing should fly. It's, like I said, he just pretty much takes it to the track, so hopefully it'll meet his goals. I think his fastest pass in this car was like a 1230 or something like that with the stock engine, and now he's got a forged motor. So hopefully we can make a little bit more power and get this thing. Honestly, I don't see why it can't go in the 10s if he can drive it. So we'll try to make the power and get it tuned, and I'll give him a boost by gear map that hopefully should work good, and then he'll just have to let me know how fast it goes. Maybe I'll update you guys. But yeah, so I'm gonna do those small things quick, and then we'll pick up with y'all in a minute. I got this thing running like a clock. So like I said, we got the timing all set up. It was actually all the way retarded before. I had to advance it quite a bit. That actually cleaned up quite a bit. Fueling was a bit off, and just as I suspected, we're overrunning the fuel system with that big pump. Lowest I can get it is around 50 PSI, so we'll just have to keep an eye on things. I also got a homemade overflow on it right now. A water bottle, but it'll work for now. This thing's running good. So I'm just going to do some drivability stuff real quick, get the map ironed out a little bit more, and we'll go from there. a couple things I was doing in the car. I was just doing some more drivability tuning. I got it pretty close, and the boost kept running away, so I had to revert the solenoid. There's a maximum boost at 0% or a maximum boost at 100, and it's a 50-50 chance. So set the boost cut low and just see what it does. So the wastegate spring in this thing's making like 4 to 5 pounds of boost. Perfect. We're gonna crank the solenoid up tomorrow when I get back out here and hopefully make some jam. And the fuel pressure being as low as it is, the pump is overrunning it like I was talking about, so the fuel map is a little bit weird right now because it's the fuel pressure is not rising with boost because the pressure is technically lower than my base. So when you give it throttle, it actually drops fuel pressure because it's actually using the fuel. If that makes sense, if you guys ever ran into that before, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so other than that, I had to tighten up some catch can lines. The oil catch can lines were loose, so I tightened those up. Nothing's going in the overflow so far, so everything's looking good there. Car drives pretty good on the dyno, so I feel like we can send her. So I'll see you guys out here tomorrow. Go home, charge my laptop, and get La Pikachu ready for tomorrow. Alrighty guys, it's the next day. I'm back out at the shop working on La Pikachu, and just did a baseline run today when I got out here. 227 horsepower. I don't know how much boost it's on, but it was breaking up pretty bad, and I ended up pulling the spark plugs out of it. These were the plugs that were in there. These are BKR7E. The gap was about 30 something thousandths. It's pretty big. So I'm actually going to throw these NGK 9s in there because this guy wants to make a lot of power. So we're going to throw these in. I already gapped them down to a really tight 14, so hopefully we won't have any more ignition breakup issues for the rest of the tuning process. So I'm going to throw these in. This car probably would be best with like a 8 heat range, but 9s will be, because he has another motor, another 4-piston motor that he really wants to make a ton of power with, and 9s would be great for that. So I think I'm just going to tell him to order a bunch of 9s. It's not going to hurt running a heat range too cold in this thing, so we're just going to run the 9s in it, and then he can just bulk order 9s and have them for later for the future motor as well. So that's kind of the thought process behind it. But I'm going to get these thrown in. We're going to do another pull on wastegate pressure, and then we're just going to slowly increase the boost, and we'll see what kind of power it makes per boost level. I don't know how much filming I'm going to do. I'm just going to be sitting in the car most of the time doing runs back to back. So I'll let you guys know. I'm just trying to get this thing done. So yeah, let's get these in. Alrighty guys, so this car is doing pretty good. I've been playing with the boost by gear settings a little bit, and we got the boost a little bit higher. I did a run on 5 pounds. I put I think 30% duty cycle in it, and it made 6.3. And then I put 40 in it, and it made like 8 point something. So we're just gonna keep going up and up. But so far on like 8 pounds, we're making 314 horsepower. You can see the gains here. I'm just gonna kind of label each run so we know how much power it makes on what boost. So yeah, but this is the most recent right here, and I'm glad I caught this because I was just tuning and tuning and tuning, and I let the car cool off a little bit, and this screen right here, you can see it's ripped, and it was getting sucked into the turbo like this. So I don't want this going through the turbo because that wouldn't be a good day. So I'm just gonna remove it for now. I told him to just get a turbo guard instead of this screen that he has. So yeah, let's turn the boost up a little bit more and see how much more we can make. Alright guys, so there was one run where I turned the boost controller up to 50% and it ran up to like 19 pounds or something. So I got out of it just because I was a little nervous. There was other runs. I think the one we just did made 341 for horsepower, and I think it was on 14 pounds. So I'm gonna clear up some of these other runs here so we can see what this thing is doing. It just seems like it's not consistent. Like one run it makes good boost, and then the next run it seems like it doesn't fully make boost. I don't know why that is. Like it'll make, I'll show you the log. I'll pull the log up here and I'll show you what it's doing. Alright guys, so here's the data log. You can see the bottom is our boost level. 5.6 pounds at 6,400 RPM. We go to the run here. We go to 6,400 RPM. Here's 6,200 RPM. 10.8 pounds. I didn't change anything, so I feel like it's got an intermittent boost leak from somewhere. I don't know where. Or the turbo is like coming in and out for some reason. Because like one run will be really strong and then the next one's just like, you know, and then I'll ring it out, and then eventually at like 7,500 it starts making power. But it's something's up. I don't know where it's got a boost leak, if it's got a boost leak. You need a smoke machine to really test it. And the thing is too, is like I put 50% duty in it one of the pulls and it didn't do shit, and then the next run I did it and it made like 17 fucking pounds right here. So like this run it made 17 pounds, 7,400, but right before it was only making 8 pounds at 7 grand. So like all of a sudden it shot up, making a ton of boost, which just tells me like it's, I don't know, it's got a leak and then it overcomes the leak, or the turbo is a little in and out. I don't know. It's kind of odd. Or the blow-off valve might be leaking. It's hard to say. VTEC wasn't working before, now it is, and we just popped a coupler. But it's still not making power. I don't get it. All right, guys, it's the next day. I actually woke up in the middle of the night last night, and I had an idea. This Pikachu is not making power how it should. I was tuning it yesterday. I did a ton of pulls, and I didn't really film a whole lot because I was a little bit stumped. This car on like 22 pounds of boost is only making like 380 horsepower, which with this setup, on that amount of boost, it should be making well over 400, if not 500 horsepower. So you can see here, these are the power curves currently that we're dealing with, and you can see the torque never flattens out until way up here. And this is kind of where the boost starts to level off a little bit. This thing should fully spool way down here, pretty much right at VTEC. So there's two things going on. It's very lazy to build boost, which it shouldn't be with this turbo. And I'm going to show you what the car did on low boost here, 1 second. So I have the low boost pull pulled up on the dyno, overlaying the high boost pull. And you can see the torque curve here in red on low boost is exactly how this thing should be. Pretty much right at VTEC, 4,500 or so. It goes up and it stays flat. For the most part, it stays perfectly flat. Here is the torque curve, this light green line, of how it is on high boost. You can see that it comes up, it tries to go flat but can't quite do it, and then it gains and it gains. So what I think is going on is there's a restriction somewhere, and I think I may have found it, and I'm going to test it out here shortly. I put boost by gear in this car and the plumbing for the solenoid and stuff like that, and I plumbed this fitting into the intercooler pipe like I had talked about. This is how much pipe is sticking into the intercooler. This is quite a bit of piping. You can see where it's painted. They painted around it when it was still on the car. So this right here, this amount of length is into the coupler. It's literally pushing against the core of the intercooler. This pipe is literally smashed up right against the core of the intercooler, so it has to fight through that small section of intercooler, and that air is not free to travel throughout the core of the intercooler, if that makes sense. So I am going to cut this pipe down so the air is not smashed up against that part of the core, and I'm going to see if that fixes it. I'm really hoping it will. I think it will help spool time. I think it'll help everything. So if you can't get the air in or out, it's going to cause issues. So we have to make sure that we can get the air in as efficiently as possible. And like I said, we're going to cut this pipe down and see if that fixes it. If it does not fix it, we could have a boost leak still somewhere or something else going on, but I think this is an easy thing to test. So I'm going to test it and let you guys know how it goes. Another side note is I would have never found this issue had I not drilled the intercooler pipe for that fitting, because I would have never pulled the piping off. You know what I'm saying? And this car's been to a couple different tuners, and every single place it's gone, it's been a turd. It's not made good power. I think the last time he had it tuned, it made 420 horsepower on 27 or 28 pounds of boost, which is terrible. That much boost, this thing should be really ripping. So let's see what we can do here. And like I said, I just kind of got lucky seeing that amount of pipe into the intercooler there, and it just kind of popped in my head in the middle of the night last night, like I was saying. So I'm really hoping this does the trick. If it doesn't, I don't know where to go, you know. All right, guys, I got the piping modified. I'll show you how much I cut out. So I cut that much length out of the pipe. I'm hoping it'll do the trick. guys, so I got finished up on that yellow EK Pikachu. It ended up making a pretty good amount of power after I fixed that pipe, and I didn't think this thing would want as much timing as it did, but this motor, for some reason, I don't know if it's choked up. I feel like a lot of choked up motors want timing, so I feel like there is still a restriction on that car somewhere, whether it's the intercooler just not being efficient, or the hot side of the turbo is only a 63 AR hot side, so that's also a pretty big limiting factor. If it had an 82 AR hot side, it would just breathe a lot better. So that's another, like I said, limiting factor. We did get the boost by gear installed. Everything is running good, and I ended up making 474 horsepower on 22 pounds of boost. So, but like I said, I actually had to run it. It picked up like 30 horsepower going from a 10.8 air fuel to an 11.5, which is like crazy. It's just crazy. I tried going to like a 1220 and it lost power. I tried a bunch of different timing values. I think at 22 pounds of boost, I'm running like 16 degrees of timing on that car because it responded like crazy. It picked up like another 20 or 30 horsepower with 2 degrees. So I had a pretty aggressive timing map in it already, and I'm like, man, I got to see if this thing's going to respond, because typically a lot of these cars, you know, and setups like this will take the same amount of timing for pretty much all of them. And that's the map that I throw in most of them, and I play with it here and there, up and down, and usually they don't respond. But this one, like I said, I gave it timing and it lit right up. Like it responded a lot better. So I have the right timing map in it now, and it's running like an 11.5 to 11.8 air fuel on 22 pounds. And it made 474 horsepower. And here are the values between 5 pounds of boost and 22 pounds of boost. This was like 17, this was 15 or 14, this was 10. So we do have a boost by gear value now that we can put into the car. He's gonna come pick it up in a couple days. I've just been freaking swamped, guys. I appreciate everybody's patience. I have numerous cars in here right now that I'm going to be working on, and I can't wait to show you more of them. But I just got a lot of stuff going on right now. Like I'm overwhelmed, and I hate being overwhelmed with cars that give me issues, because they take away from all the stuff that I could be doing. But I also don't like shit going out the door that's not 100%. So it's an internal battle of mine. I can't say no to a lot of these guys when they drop stuff off and they have issues. I have to make them right, because I don't like shit leaving that's not perfect, because if it ain't, it comes back on the last guy that touched it, which is me. Whether it's my fault or not, you know, people always just point their finger to the last guy that touched it. So, you know, even if stuff comes up later, they always just kind of point fingers. So I always have that mental battle in my head, like, fuck, I don't want to look bad, and you know what I mean? So just doing the best I can. But I'm pretty happy with this thing. It could probably make 500 horsepower, but I don't really care to push it any farther with the setup. It just seems like it's still a little choked. And that turbo is just kind of out of breath. It needs a 82 AR housing. Like I said, I think that would definitely pick up quite a bit, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of the intercooler piping is still leaking somewhere, some way. It just doesn't respond how I think it should, but needless to say, it still is a great little setup, and it's ripping now after fixing a lot of the little issues. Another issue could be too that the load just isn't enough for that turbo on the dyno, because in 4th gear we're only running like 115 miles an hour, spinning fucking 8,600 RPM. So it might have like a GSR trans or something in it, or a B16, and the small tires and stuff like that. Once this car gets a slick on it and is at the track, it should rip pretty damn good. So I'm hoping all that stuff's gonna work out for this guy. And we're gonna call it a day with La Pikachu. We're gonna move on to some other stuff that I got here that we're gonna be tuning. This car, for like the 3rd time, is back, finally, with all the issues fixed. So Team Defiant has been awesome with helping me out, knock a couple more of these cars out, on top of all the other stuff that I'm trying to do. So shout out to them. And then this thing should be fucking awesome. Can't wait to get to that in a couple more days. But I have some other cool stuff coming, so stay tuned. Have a great night and a better tomorrow, guys, and we will see you later.